Hello, this is Ken Ferrie with this week's Boots in the Field report. It's beginning to look a lot like spring. Mother Nature must have forgot about February and March. While I'm enjoying the unseasonably warm weather, we'd fare a little better with some more freezing and thaw cycles to reset soil density and kill a few more bugs. The question of the value of freezing and thawing has come up a couple of times at meetings this year. A man asked me last week, when he came here to Corn College this summer, he heard us say that freezing and thawing will not take out compaction layers. But in his college class, they told him that freezing thawing would take out compaction layers. And he's kind of wondering which way it really is. Well, freezing thawing does help with compaction, especially wheel tracks, and it helps to reset soil density overall. But it is poor at removing compaction layers. As a matter of fact, in some situations, it can make it worse. Now, I know that sounds wrong, but it's a sudden change in soil density that causes the problems with root growth and water movement in the soil. When you have loose soil at the surface, it allows for the root system to get larger in diameter from the start. And as the soil slowly gets tighter, the root will adjust to that size and it'll move on down. But if it gets tight at a sudden horizontal layer, the roots don't have time to adjust and they're going to turn and go on top of that layer. In the fall, when we get rain, it soaks into the soil and it's going to stop at that compaction layer. It's going to build up above that compaction layer because it's held up. When the freezing does happen, the soil sitting above the layer has a lot more water stored in it, and it's going to expand at a way much higher rate than the compaction layer that has very little water sitting in it. Now, while this creates ideal conditions at the surface, it makes that difference in soil density more drastic from the layer and the soil above it. The compaction layer expands a little, but nothing like the soil above it because of the large amount of water that's stored in it. Compaction layers tend to float in our soil up and down just like our roads do on the highways out here freezing and thawing. When we till up compaction layers and more or less turn those compaction layers on in the soil, freezing and thawing is very effective at expanding in all directions and starting to rebuild or homogenize our soil density. I've personally found plow soils that were 20 years old and still restricting root systems and water movement. And this is in northern Iowa, where it gets a lot colder than it does here in central Illinois. Now, don't get me wrong, freezing thawing is a great gift and it helps us grow the crops that we do, but there are some things that it just can't do. Last week, I traveled to Dyersburg, Tennessee to do a grower meeting for the University of Tennessee. Had a great time and met a lot of good people. I want to share a conversation I had with Ryan Blair from the university.
Here with Ryan Blair with the University of Tennessee. Ryan, maybe give you what's your job here at the university and as far as what you're doing in corn soybean production down here.
Sure can. So I'm a state specialist with the University of Tennessee in Extension. My responsibilities are variety testing for row crops. So we do across the state county strip trials in corn, soybeans, cotton, and wheat. And we work with our local county extension offices in those counties, and we're putting out large strip trials on farm using producers' equipment and fields and using their inputs and getting yield data based on those plots.
Kind of real-time plots out.
Absolutely.
And what was the year like for these guys down here this year as far as crop yields and were they fighting moisture issues, or what was their year like?
23 started out with a cool, wet spring. Set us back in planting a little bit. We got our crop in, got our crop up, and it turned out extremely dry here for us. We went about 60 days in some parts with no moisture, little traceable moisture. So we're looking in that June, July, and the 1st of August. a really dry period. Coming into grain field, we started getting some really timely rains and turned what looked like a disaster year into a really bumper crop.
Turned things around.
It really turned things around. We've got lots of reports of record yields on farms in corn and soybeans and cotton as well. And so we're looking somewhere in the ballpark. We haven't had the numbers released yet, but I would think a state average on our corn crops is probably going to be around the 180, where we're typically 172, 3. Soybeans, we're probably in that 65 bushel. And again, that's with double crop, which takes up probably 20% of our soybean acres.
Really, one surprised about the size of the group here today. Look, I went almost 500 people,
Sure.
and if I understand that right, that's multiple districts, and you do this in different districts from the university side, kind of blown away, I guess, by the amount of people you have in the extension service for these guys out here. Maybe recap what you were telling me earlier. Coming from Illinois, we're not used to hearing that kind of support, at the extension level.
We're very fortunate in Tennessee to have an extension program that really encompasses the state. We've got 96 counties in Tennessee, and in each county we have an extension office that houses at least 3 extension personnel. That's
wow.
Agricultural Natural Resources, that's the FCS, 4-H, and many of those counties have multiple ag agents or FCS agents, depending on the county and the location. But yeah, Ken, this is it's really unusual to see an extension program in the state as covered as Tennessee is anymore.
And I assume Tennessee agriculture must be one of your big businesses. I'm guessing.
Absolutely.
And that kind of works its way all the way down into 4-H, which keeps that business strong, as far as the leaders coming today.
Yes, I think one of our prides too, with extension, is I believe Tennessee has one of the largest 4-H chapters as a state of any other state. So very proud of that, and that goes back to our presence in all of our counties.
So where's all that commitment come from? Is that the University of Tennessee bringing that, or
we've got
is it
great state legislative support? The University of Tennessee is really committed to funding and making sure our extension programs and also our research programs and teaching programs, we're trying to stay in that top tier, and that starts with good folks in the county, and that starts with our producers using extension and the state and our legislation seeing that need for extension to stay prevalent in the counties.
Well, that's pretty cool to see that kind of connection. Makes me jealous, actually, to realize that you got that kind of support all the way through the system. So appreciate you taking some time and kind of talking with us today to kind of give us a perspective for Tennessee.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that. We'll be at the farm show in Louisville. Probably see some of you guys down there. To stay up to date, check out our website at croptechinc.com and subscribe to our podcast, Boots in the Field Report. Keep her safe, keep her moving.